Sheldon from Dirt and Grow. My background has been chemical agriculture, so I know all the active ingredients and a lot of the insecticides, fungicides, herbicides for weed control in your lawn, in the field. So basically the products that I'm trying to develop, and there are other products out in the marketplace that I can discuss, a fungicide or an insecticide that is available, but I don't have enough time to run through all of them. So later on you can come to my booth, and if you're thinking about growing indoor greenhouse, what can I use? What's out there? What's available for insects? Because you're going to have insects. What's available for fungicides? You're going to get molds and mildews. I can cover those later. So the first one I want to talk about is a granular fertilizer. Now I produce this in bulk 42-ton truckloads for across Canada, open field, indoor greenhouse growers, and then I make it in a 10 kg bag lawn food. The beauty about this granular fertilizer, it has 7 different ingredients to cover all the soil types we have in Canada, which is variable. But in general, high pH. At high pH, you tie up your calcium. You tie up your phosphate. That's why your tests show a lot of calcium on your soil test. Well, I don't need calcium. Well, no, they use the harsh extraction agent to get that calcium to register your max potential. It is unavailable calcium. It's tied up in the form of a rock along with your phosphate. That's why your phosphates also show low, because phosphates often move with water. But nitrates move even faster. So what I wanted to do is include all the ingredients and then a pH neutralizer. So the way that you use my product, it's a nice tight granular, put it in its own metering compartment, band it, and seed into it. The reason why you can do that is it doesn't have salt as a byproduct. Your inorganic fertilizers have to be banded to the side and away because they contain salt as a byproduct. They also move readily with water, and they will coat your young seed or seedling and burn it. So my product, you want to seed it as close as possible to your seed. Number one reason, pH. Our soils are 7.8, 8.2, 8.6. Unless you're in BC, you get some low acid soils. But in general, 95 to 98% of our soils are high in pH. So we want to get the pH of 7. Then your plant, as it gets bigger and more established root system, it can start to extract that calcium and extract that phosphate that's tied up. At a high pH, it stays in the form of a rock. And it can't get to it, it can't break it down. The other thing that I add to it is a sugar. Because my product is a slower release throughout the entire summer season. So on a higher nitrogen using crop like corn, hemp, a lot of other products are immediately available nitrates. And they leach to the lower water table as Mother Nature rains more. Mine stays where you put it and moves within about an inch maximum. And that's it. Doesn't matter how much irrigation you get, it's a slower breakdown process. So what I needed to do, I needed to get the crop up and out of the ground fast. Because in the spring, under cool, wet conditions, a lot of mycorrhizal type product, it doesn't perform. Because it's alive, it needs optimal temperature, optimal moisture. So it's a little slower to react in the beginning. And what you want to do is get the crop out of the ground and ahead of the weeds that you just went over with the tillage a piece of equipment 3 times probably before you went and seeded it. So, majority of the macronutrients are slower release, but they are still available to the plant. Now the sugar, being the most important part, gets into the germ of your seed. Triggers it into increasing cell development inside the germ. So primary root, primary shoot, up and out of the ground. So once that is started, after 4 weeks, Mother Nature's diluted that sugar, and it's no longer available. So banding it is extremely important. I've done 3 years of small plot data testing up against 7 other products that were currently offered a decade ago. Banding it was the best for your dockage count being the lowest. If you broadcast mine, the sugars will go to the weeds, and they will thank you for it. They will thrive off of it. Because that's like increasing their cell division. It's like candy to a baby. They go crazy off of it. You want your seed to do that, not the weeds that you have an abundant supply of, and an existing root on the weeds. Yield increases. Get down to the Coles notes. The product is $70 per acre, flat out. There are discounts that will drop it to 64 bucks an acre, and I will pay the freight to the farm gate, whether you're in South Dakota, Montana, or you're in Atlantic provinces. For the early booking program, write these bushels down, 6 to 8 bushel on wheat and barley. If your wheat's at 21 bucks, you get a 6 bushel increase. That's 120 bucks an acre. Fertilizer costs you 70 bucks at your farm gate. You've made profit, it's paid for itself, but you also get the agronomic benefits, which I will talk about, which are very important. Oats, 10 to 12 bushel. If it's $2 oat, times 10 bushels, it's only 20 bucks. You can make the decision not to put it on or not, but you're not going to get the value out of it in the first year because the commodity price is too low. Barley, 4 bucks. 8 bushels an acre increase, that's only $32. Don't put it on barley. You're not going to get the payback in the first year. That's why I do dollars per acre price, based on a 100-pound per acre rate. Now if you're growing corn, tobacco, hemp, 200 pounds minimum. But once again, look at your commodity price. If it's only $3 a bushel and you're getting 150 bushel on corn, well, that's actually quite a bit. Right? So look at the commodity price. So the granular has NP, NPK, calcium, and sulfur. I add the calcium because the calcium in your soil is not immediately available. The sugar won't extract that right away. So it takes some time. Okay, next one. Foliar. I've had lots of guys come up to me, can I broadcast your granular? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to feed the weeds. You can broadcast it on alfalfa, but at 100 pounds an acre, which costs you 70 bucks, your pellets are going to be 1 foot apart. At 200 pounds, they'll be within 2 inches, but it's 140 bucks an acre. Are you going to get the value out of it? Probably not. So, a foliar spray, Rage Plus. This is my #1 seller in the lawn and garden world, and it will soon be my #1 seller in greenhouses. It has a 006. It only registered having potassium of 6 because N, P, and K is what I requested for the analysis. What this product is full of is natural hormones. It will increase cell division 100 times faster. So if you have a 100-year-old oak that's more stick than leaves and you give it Rage Plus, you'll be swearing at me because of all the leaves you have to rake up in the fall. It will bring that plant back to life. Roses with half-dead stick and mostly leaves. My smaller growers now take the Rage Plus Pure and they squirt it into 500 2-gallon pots as they're watering. They don't even mix it up prior to. They just squirt it right on the root. Can't burn your root system with it, even though the rate of use is 3 milliliters per liter. It's very concentrated. But they want to revive their half-dead roses because nobody takes the Charlie Brown rose, they keep putting it apart. We're at 5 minutes. Holy. Okay. Rage Plus creates thicker cell wall structure, allowing it to power through insect infestations, fungus. The whole world has been schooled on, oh, we better spray if you got insects. Oh, you better spray if you have fungus. Well, you don't have to do that. Now you have to continually spray because most of that fungicide and insecticide is contact kill only, and they're live biologicals. Anything that's alive under cool wet conditions doesn't perform. So, before picture. 12-year-old, very exotic tree, 30-10-10, 20-20-20, he tried everything on it. Mycorrhizal, didn't do nothing. Took about 3 months, back alive. He could move that tree back and forth with the root system, but it wasn't snap dead. There was still flow, okay? But a 006. How does it work, right? Next product. This one is mainly going to be for rural municipalities first, and then lawn and garden centers. Later on, it will be available to spray around your bins, and it burns grass and broadleaf weeds extremely quickly, and it's only a 5% acetic acid. Vinegar. No need to suit up in a spacesuit no more. Lots of times the acetic acid that you purchased for that weed control is 20 to 30%. You have to wear a full body suit. Municipalities don't want to send their summer student out there in a full body suit because they don't use it. And then they go and dump it into the sprayer and they get it all over them and they burn their skin. More liability than bothering to use it. So, 5% household. Just wear some gloves, that's it. Send the summer student out, he gets it on him, no big deal. But 20% acetic acid didn't work. Why would 5% work? Glyphosate is an active ingredient in a lot of, Roundup is a trade name, there's other trade names. Glyphosate won't kill a darn weed on its own, won't do nothing. It needs a surfactant, or a sticking agent, or a glue to absorb through the waxy cuticle layer, kill cell wall structure. That's what this needs. The surfactant is the key to get dead brown leaves within a 48-hour period. Now, most acetic acids, even at 20%, you need 25-degree heat for the next 3 days. And we always get that in the spring, right? Always. No problem. This has a wider range. 10 degrees, of course, the hotter the better, but you can apply it at 10 degrees, and it will kill the weed within 2 days. Dried right up. But it's about the surfactant in it. And that's my presentation. That's my dog. She's now 7 years old. And she was the creator of my Evolved Dog Spot product, which basically stops the yellow spots from happening in your lawn. My neighbor and I both work for grain line companies, and we always did the grass off every year. So we went to the big bulk bin and got all this specialty fertilizer, and we poured it on our lawns. Oh, and I loved cutting my grass 3 times a week for the first 3 weeks. Awful. Then I got a dog 7 years ago, little pup. We get lots of snow in Manitoba. Sent her out, she always went to the tree. But then I had to cut the tree down because I built an extra garage. So she didn't know where to go, so she went everywhere. My whole backyard was yellow landmines. Holy crap, grass off, it's not on anymore. Good thing I had an 8-foot high fence in my backyard. So 2 years trying to find a product out there that stopped it from happening. They always sold me something to fix it, so I'd be out there fixing it. She'd come and sniff at me and go, hey, what are you doing? And then go over and pee on the last grass blade in the yard. But I wanted something to stop it from ever happening again. And finally I found something. As long as you broadcast it 3 times a year, no more yellow. Doesn't happen. Doesn't matter if you have 2 dogs, 4 dogs. You will finally be able to keep your grass. Thank you very much. You can come back to the booth if we don't answer all your questions here. Same with the other individuals. Just come to the booth. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much, Sheldon, and good tight presentation, and we're getting the next one up and going. Next we have Mitch Good from MEC-TAC Enterprises. How about that for a reversal? Sorry about that. Anyway, he's an organic farmer, and he can address all of that and more, I'm sure. So 5-minute warning.
Hi everybody, my name's Mitch, as you heard. Our business is based out of Ontario, Canada. We carry fertilizer nutrition, soil nutrition for organic farmers specializing in monoculture crops. So my talk today is going to be about what has worked for us in agronomics of organic production. So we're going to talk about the value of nutrient placement, the value of weed control, and the synergistic effect between the two. So I just want to make a disclaimer. I'm aware that in Ontario we have a bit different growing conditions, so I'm just telling you what works for us and what has given us the ability to become full-time farmers in an industry that doesn't always support that. So here we go. Before we talk about nutrition, we have to talk about weed control. So without weed control, your response to nutrition is greatly reduced. So if you put a nutrient plan together and sideband down some fertilizer, you can get a 10 bushel response without control. But if you do control with the implements that we're going to be talking about today, you can get upwards of 40 bushel responses, and we see this on corn. So this may not be the same with your pulses or grains, but this is just what we're seeing. So we're going to talk about what your options are, the equipment available, and our experiences. So here's a nice looking crop of corn that's organic corn. The weeds are held back, as you can see, and we're getting 175 bushels an acre. So this is right on par with conventional farmers, and I think that should be our goal. Another happy farmer here with organic soybeans with 50 plus bushel an acre. We got some winter wheat here with a nice farmer that I know, 80 bushels an acre. with our fertility program. So what is needed? You're going to need an air drill with fertilizer for seed placement. Starter fertilizer pays large dividends, so we want to give our crop a head start, especially in low fertility soils. So when weeds are controlled, fertility helps crop outcompete the weeds. So the best inter-row cultivator money can buy, in our case, our inter-row cultivator is the most expensive piece of machinery, including tractors on our farm. We also have a blind harrow with hydraulic depth control. Here's a picture of one of our good farmers in Ontario with his Einbach Aerostar cultivator. So this is the tine weeder, and what we do with this is we blind harrow our crops. So we will plant our grains and our beans and corn at a depth maybe a little bit lower than or deeper than what we usually would, but we do this because so we can go across the field with this prior to emergence. So this is key because we want to give the crop a head start. That's what it's all about. So along with the nutrition, proper weed control can really help, get ahead of the weeds, because that's really what we're trying to work for. Another tine weeder. These are Einbach tine weeders. Front link out here. Jared, you can go talk to him. He's a good guy. We use these. This is kind of a rotary tine or an arrow tine, and this works well post-emergence also. So we're going through 4 to 5 days after we plant, and then depending upon moisture in the soil, we'll be going across the field once it's been emerged and out of the soil. So it does look like you're hurting your crop. We may increase our seeding rates a bit to sacrifice, but we're getting out of the tractor, assessing the field, making sure that we know what we're doing is working, whether the pressure on it, the depth that we're going, and the speed at which we're hitting the crop at. So this is all very important. This is another implement that we use. This isn't ours, but we have one very similar to this on our farm, and it's a double rotary hoe. So we've taken a 30-footer and double ganged it. So this is good on hard, heavy soils. You can go across the field at 10 to 15 miles an hour. And we do this post-emergence, so once the crop's up and out of the ground. Again, you're getting out of your tractor, you're testing, seeing how many of the crop, how much of the crop you're actually uprooting, because we want to limit that, but we want to get those little small weed seeds that are barely germinated. Another view of the Einbach tine weeder, the Aerostar, in the crop after emergence. So one of our mentors in Ontario has been farming for over 40 years, and he says, if you see green other than your crop in your field, you're too late. So we need to be looking into the soil, moving the soil around, and looking for those little white hairs, root hairs that are germinating. So once you see those, you're back into the field. So for us, once we planted, for the first 5 weeks, we're almost in the field every week. So this is very important. The Chop Star inter-row cultivator, we have this with a row guard, so that's with the guidance on it, which helps a lot. And it can go down to sub 8 inches. So it can get into your grain crops and keep in between the rows free of weeds, and then also within the row, which you can see here with these finger weeders, also do a very good job. Another option for your weeds, so as you can see, weed control is very important for us, especially when you're getting organic prices and high yields. So these implements make a lot of sense when you're making a good amount of income off of your crop by pushing the yield and keeping back the weeds. So this is the Weed Surfer from TM Industries, and it's pretty much just a mower that goes over your crop and is holding back your seed bank, right? Because we're always fighting the seed bank and trying to keep seeds from going to a viable seed and going into your soil. So we want to stop that. Another picture of the Weed Surfer is just pretty much a big lawnmower, right? the comb cut, which is just outside here, and we are actually probably going to be investing in one of these. We don't have one of these right now, but if anybody is interested, we're getting a container, and I think a container can hold 2, so let me know. They're from Europe. So nutrition required, you bet. So low soil test levels will not produce good yields, never. So fertility helps the crop to outcompete the weeds. The combination of the weed control and the fertility is an organic crop production winner. So banded starter nutrition is a fast start. So that's what we're really promoting here. We know that getting a proper environment for your seed to germinate, because it's going to assess its environment, and if it knows that there's the nutrition there right away, that's going to express itself through a genetic expression and then allow for you to set your crop into a situation where you're going to get the yields that are going to make you a profitable farmer. So the role of seed place nutrition: to supply nutrition when the soil can't keep up. Early root development, early plant growth really helps maximize your yield potential. So nutrition, protect your crop. So the greatest yield potential you're going to have with a crop is the day the seed germinates. It's all downhill from here. So the weakest time in a plant's life is from, is from the germination to emergence. The faster the emergence, the better. So we want to be able, like we said, keep the weeds down and get that crop up and out of the ground as fast as possible. And the way you do that is putting the fertilizer down with the seed, right beside the seed, and giving it a head start. So here's an example of a crop, corn, that we did at one of our farmers' places, where we did no nutrition and then our TechMac granular starter nutrition. And as you can see, the difference in how the crop came out of the ground, but then also here on these leaves you can see some purpling, which is a phosphate deficiency. And this really, 22 parts per million of phosphorus, isn't really even that low. So as you can see, getting nutrition right to the plant really sets the plant on its course. So what we're talking about here, what this little photo or graphic is trying to show, is that we all plant into cold soil, so we need to have nutrition right by the soil, because it's not going to be ready right away, because the nutrition is going to be activated once the soil becomes warm and things start to be moving around, and everything comes to life once we get some heat. So the root growth is slow and the phosphate exchange is slow in cold soils, and as I've been told out here, that you guys are lacking phosphorus. So getting phosphorus right by the root, setting the root on its course. Okay, thank you. One of the essential plant nutrients is phosphorus, is needed for the early stages of germination. Any deficiency during this time can greatly reduce the subsequent potential of the plant. A starter fertilizer is the most beneficial when the crop is planted into cold, wet soil, regardless of the total fertility of the soil. So as you can see here, we're getting it right by the plant. Blowing it down with your seed is imperative. So the goal is to maximize root nutrient contact. Placement of the starter in the region that will have the highest density of root early in the season is key. So getting it right down with the seed, keeping the weeds back. It's a synergistic effect that we're trying to work here. Keep the weeds down, increases nutrient absorption, increases the yield of the plant. You increase the yield of the plant by keeping the weeds down. So the importance of early season phosphorus nutrition. This is by Cynthia Grand of Brandon. Withholding nutrition during the early stage of crop. I know this sounds very obvious, but it's true. The growth limits the crop production. Critical phosphorus supplies tillering of barley, 4 to 6 weeks of growth. Important to manage phosphorus, ensures early season access to the crop. So the optimal method, supplying phosphorus early and near the seed, getting it there, blowing it down with the crop. So the synergistic effect of nitrogen. So I know that out here we have a lot of potassium, but as you can see here in this little table, that it shows that phosphorus alone, there's a 12% absorption of the fertilizer, not of the total phosphorus. And then nitrogen and phosphorus, it jumps all the way up to 20%. and then phosphorus and potassium down to 13, but then the synergistic effect of all three up to 22% absorption. So this is the way we formulate our fertilizers, having a balance of all the macronutrients. So this is our product. It's a granular product that we mix in with some micronutrients. If needed, we can up your phosphorus levels with our mixtures. Our TechMac nutrient blends are a complete blend of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. They flow through air drills really well, and the micros can also be added. So we got some demonstrations of plot. As we've seen, we'll flip it over. You can see here on the crop, or on the plant that got the starter, a lot more root mass than the one that didn't. We got a couple crop demonstration plots. You can't really see it, but I'm going to tell you what we did. So we hammered a bunch of fertilizer to this. We put down 600 pounds of our fertilizer in the row, and then another 2,000 pounds broadcasted, and we took a crop of corn from 82 bushels to 144. So if you're getting $12 a bushel, the cost of fertilizer is pretty much, it doesn't matter. You're making it over and over and over again. Another here is some spring wheat, where we took I can't even, 130 pounds of seed placed in the row. We took it from 21 to 28 bushels. We also added some Earth Alive, which is a nitrogen fixing bacteria. So we're always looking to try to find new and better things to mix in with our fertilizers, whether it's bacterial inoculants or other substrates to put in. What we have here, I can barely see that, I'm going to get by the computer. So what we have here is our corn demonstration plot at our farm in Meaford, and we have our 74321 with magnesium. So we've created a different blend here. And then we've also, so we took this crop from 142, the control, to up to 157. And then we also added chitin, which is the exoskeleton of like crabs and shrimp and things like that, which also adds something to feed your bacteria. So we're always trying to figure out what the best blend is and make it scalable to allow all farmers to be able to use nutrition. So there's our product again. Here's our analysis, the 741. That is the good and green. We also have the 310-3, which is mixed with phosphorus. And we have our Eco Green, which is more of like a 561. So these are, the Eco Green is new. We've been selling out of the good and green in Ontario, but now that we have more, we're creating more different blends and trying to figure out how to get you guys some starter nutrition down with your pulses and grains. We're certified by EcoCert. And thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed it and can take home the lesson that if you're going to use nutrition, control your weeds, spend a little extra time in the field, and you'll pay the benefits in the long run. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mitch, and sorry about messing up the name. You think you guys get nervous. Anyway, we're ready to move to our third presenter, and you guys are getting bombarded with lots of information. I hope you go to their booths and pick their brains later when you can actually get the in-depth discussion that they're going to give you one-on-one. Next, I would like to invite up Derek Pratt from Energetic for his presentation as well. Do you have a...
Oh, someone's going to have to make sure that get it up here.
All the PowerPoints are open at the top screen.
Yes.
At the top part. You can see it on the top center.
There you go. Perfect.
Okay, and this is refresh here.
So Derek,
I'm going to use the podiums here. Someone put it here. I'll use it. Does this also work? Yeah, okay. I don't really need that then. All right, I'm here from Energetic.
Penergetic is a line of products from Switzerland. It's a family-run business. Products are available in over 35 countries around the world. Company's been around for over 20 years. On the crop side, there's over 4 million acres, well in excess now of 4 million acres globally in Penergetic use. Penergetic has a full line of products. It's a holistic or full circle approach to agriculture. We're not obviously going to be talking about manure treatment, composting, feed additives, water treatment. Those are things, if they relate to your situation, we can definitely help you with. We're going to concentrate on soil and crops, and part of that is seed treatment as well. Specifically, we have two products. We keep it simple. One is for the soil. They kind of have interesting names, Penergetic K, Penergetic P. People think, oh, they're selling phosphorus and potassium. We're not. K stands for the German spelling of compost, spelled with a K, and I'll describe how it works. And P is Pflanzen. If anyone speaks German, you probably don't even know what I'm saying. It's plant or plants in German. So let's get started. The first one we typically refer to as the soil activator. I've got a bullet list here of the various things it does. Generally, in a nutshell, it improves soil fertility. The four that I have asterisks beside, I'm going to show you some slides on. If I don't talk too much on some of the other parts, I might have time to go back and give you some slides on the other 8. This is what the main thing that Penergetic, the soil activator, does. It activates microorganisms in the soil. As the Swiss like to say, and I like this, it gets the free workers working for you. All right, so one of the main things it does is it breaks down trash. Doesn't matter what it is, as you can see at the bottom, it'll even break down flax trash. I've shown on this slide, this happens to be blueberry trash. You don't grow blueberries here, but it's a very twiggy material, and you can see the difference in terms of breakdown. The blueberry guys are ecstatic. It works on all crops. It doesn't matter. I've got a slide later I can show you on corn, for instance. The table, which you folks at the back definitely cannot see, it's talking about the value of returning the nutrients in the trash to the soil. For every ton that you break down, you get $23 US in value of NPK and sulfur returned to your land. That's $30 Canadian. Another important thing Penergetic soil activator does is it releases fixed nutrients. Phosphorus. There's been a lot of talk of phosphorus today. This is a set of diagrams showing the transition in phosphorus at a farm. This is a pivot, hence the round shape, from fall 2013 to fall 2015, and it's a 38% increase in available phosphorus. I think the numbers, I can't see them well enough from here, but I think it's gone from 47 parts per million to 65 parts per million in that 2-year period. This is an interesting one. Rehabilitating basically unfit land to cultivate. This is showing white soil, alkaline land. In 1 year, this was turned from, hadn't been farmed for over 20 years, just grew some kochia and some other tolerant weeds, and by treating it with our soil activator, a heavy dose in the fall and a little bit more in the spring, July they took a ton of alfalfa off this land, and now it can become part of their regular rotation. Okay, there's the other, the ones in green are the ones that I haven't mentioned yet. Soil quality can improve. Weed pressure is reduced. All your macro and microorganisms, populations accelerate. Soil warms. I can show you a slide later of that. I'll show you a difference in winter kill or lack thereof on winter wheat. Plant pests, everything from nematodes to other things eliminated from your soil or suppressed. Soil compaction can be reduced. It does work well with other products, and fertilizer inputs can be reduced because you're getting the soil working for you. Okay, we're moving on to the other product. Penergetic P is for plants. We often call it crop booster. What it does is it enables plants to better access nutrients. So, key thing, it causes more chlorophyll, more photosynthesis. Obviously, you're getting better utilization of nutrients when that takes place. You can see it in the corn crop there, the back row being energetic treated, a lot greener. It shows up very readily in alfalfa and other things. Brazilians have done studies showing that you get more chlorophyll. We just noticed it from our farmers' reports. Larger leaves, better nutrient assimilation. You can see the size of the leaves in the alfalfa there. Corn as well. Doesn't matter. Sap flow, nutrient availability. The two smaller pictures of the wheat crop. Lodging is a problem when you don't have adequate nutrient cycling in your plants. We find that there's a lot less lodging. Actually, farmers tell us that they get better tolerance against hail when they use Penergetic. The picture on the left is showing stalk of a corn plant. Cut open, it is just dripping with sap. Means there's a lot more translocation of nutrients up and down the plant, which means this plant will dry down better in the fall too. This is a really important one. We talk about releasing phosphorus in the soil. Penergetic also causes an increase in mycorrhizal activity. Studies have been done showing that it more than doubles the quantity of mycorrhizae fungi on plants because mycorrhizae is responsible for 80% of the phosphorus that plants take up. If you can double it, that means you're getting more phosphorus to your plants. It also will increase your mycorrhizal bacteria on your nodulating plants. So more nitrogen being utilized. Insects. This is a nice picture showing spider mites. Not all of our distributors take pictures, but this is a nice one. It doesn't seem to matter. We've had aphids in soybeans and other crop, white moths in lettuce, etc. Also disease. You can't see it in the back, but the guy in the red shirt is smiling. The reason he's smiling is 4 years ago they came up to us at the Ottawa Farm Show crying. They would grow nice soybeans, but they would run out of, they would get the white mold and sclerotinia, same thing that affects canola out here, of course, or mustard. And 4 years ago we started working with them. They have all their users using Penergetic. They don't get the white mold, and of course they're getting increased yield. The other one is showing you cereal crop, it's wheat. This farmer in an area, this is in Colorado, in an area of rust, 150 acres he did in Penergetic, no rust. He's an organic farmer. He has now put all his crops in, for this coming year, he's going to put them in Penergetic, and he's using this year's 150 acres of Penergetic crop for seed stock. Root growth, increased root development. This is local here in McCord. The roots were so thick, the root hair is the one on the right here, that you couldn't actually break the soil away from it, although you could easily get the shovel into the soil. Now we're on to seed treatment. The one in the middle is without any seed treatment, using any of our Penergetic P on the seed. The one closest to me is when we've put it on the seed. You can see more upper aerial growth and more root development. And on the far side, it's where the soil treatment has also gone in the furrow. Similar phenomena with lentils, onion, sets. Just going to go past that for now. Here's soil. Which would you rather have? This is weeds being reduced. Clover is showing here. This one's maybe a little more vivid. You can see on the right, no weeds. On the other side, weeds on top of blueberries. Again, our blueberry guy is good at taking pictures. More worms. I just want to show you. Look at this here. This is keeping the soil warmer. Again, our blueberry guy is good at documenting stuff. He's found that the soil stays 4 to 5 degrees warmer. They found that 2 years ago, there was an 80% kill in blueberries and plants. But when the Penergetic was used, there was only a 20% die-off. So I'm just going to go back. Sorry for flipping around a bit. I'm going to end with this shot here. It's kind of an odd collection of pictures, and some of you at the back probably can't even see it, but they all kind of fit together a little bit. The one on the upper left is showing a kind of a climax Douglas fir forest. We know that no one's out there fertilizing this forest. It sustains itself naturally by reworking and reutilizing nutrients from the soil, pulling nutrients from the air, etc. In the same manner, when my grandfather and others homesteaded here over 100 years ago, the land was rich. High quantities of organic matter, rich in nutrients, microorganisms. Of course, a lot of that has since been lost. Now, what's happening on the other side here? The maple trees in Quebec have been dying, and we have actually initiated a program in conjunction with the association, where when the leaves are off the trees, we spray with our soil treatment. When the leaves are on the trees, we spray onto the foliage. And what the maple tree agronomists, if that's the right term is, have discovered is that the leaf mat that accumulates on the ground, what used to take 3 years to break down to build humus for the trees, now breaks down in 3 months. So it's just kind of showing you we're able to do the same thing with farmland here. And the top line is pretty much a bit of a statement of how the penergetic approach to agriculture is, always with nature and never against nature. That's it. Other than questions, but that'll come after Cindy.
And if you're following in your booklet, Cindy Nikolaisen is our last speaker in this section, Back to Your Roots. I think all of us are leaving with, boy, there's a lot of information in the heads of these 4 people. Do you have a presentation?
No.
No PowerPoint? So Cindy's going to use the podium too, by the look of things, and we'll, again, for those who came in late or later, we will have questions post the 15 minutes if you would like, or back at the booth. Thank you, Cindy.
There's Natalie. Hi. Thank you for the introduction. Appreciate that. My name is Cindy Nikolaisen. Exactly 9 years and 361 days ago, I started Back to Your Roots. It's just about 10 complete years, that's 6th of November. So we're pretty excited about that milestone. What do we do? I nursed for 20 years and got really sick of seeing sick people. So I started on a journey to figure out how we could grow better food. I wanted to grow better food for my family. And from there, doors opened. I met a lot of people that were able to help us on the journey, and that's my goal. That's what we try to do at the company. And we try to help our producers recognize how the soil actually works. So today I'm not going to give you a sales pitch. I just wanted to introduce you to some tools that you can use, keep in your back pocket or in your glove compartment when you're out field checking to actually figure out what's going on in your soil. And from there, figure out what's causing the problem and develop a plan to fix it. And that's pretty much what we do at the company. So, when you look at your soil, now the first thing you have to remember is when you're out soil checking, you have to get out of your truck and you actually have to walk in the field, okay? You can't crop check at 60 miles an hour. That's just not an option. When you get out, learn to see what's going on in your fields. Look at the soil. Is it hard, tight, and compacted? If it is, there's a problem there. We need to have soil that's open, that's friable, that has a nice earthy smell to it, and that goes deep into the soil. Okay, if you're only farming the top 2 inches of your soil, you're not getting the full benefit of what you could be getting. So what we normally do is we go out into the field and we take a shovel and just push it down until we hit resistance and measure how far that shovel goes into the soil. And that will give you your aerobic zone. Now the aerobic zone is a really neat environment. It's a beautiful growing environment because it contains air, it contains water, and about 50% soil. It's an interface between the atmosphere and the earth. And what the really neat part of that is it's a home for your microbes. Now, the microbial population, the biology in the soil, will do things for you that you can't buy anywhere else. It's disease protection, it creates a stability in the soil, it helps to recycle minerals and nutrients, and just recently we were looking at some research where it actually helps to control and regulate the energy flow in the soil. A little bacteria, there's roughly 1 to 2 million in a teaspoon of soil, can contain half a volt of energy. Okay, and that's quite a bit. That's like 500,000 volts in a teaspoon of soil. Now, if that wasn't contained and controlled, it would blow your foot off if you stepped on it. But that's what your plant feeds off of. Plants need energy to build mass. All right, so if we can get that microbial population in the soil fired up, working and doing its job, it makes your job a whole lot easier. In the aerobic zone, we want the pH to be relatively neutral. If you can get it close to 6.4, under 7, it helps with the microbial activity in the soil. It also helps to release some of the minerals and nutrients that are tied up in the soil. So if we can get that aerobic zone engineered so that it's healthy, it's porous, and it's holding your water, you've created the environment that you need to grow good food. Okay? So, but then we get to the microbes. What microbes do you need in the soil? There's all sorts of research and data coming down the line saying that you need so many of this and so many of that, and mycorrhiza fungi and all sorts of different things. The reality is, I think if you put them all out there and let them figure it out, you're going to be better off. All sorts of different microbes grow in different types of soils and different conditions. If you've got a lot of moisture, you're going to have a different set of microbes that are surviving than if the soil is dry versus clay versus sand. So the more diversity you can get out there, the better off things are going to be as well. Then when you go out and assess, we're going to talk about the symptoms that most guys get really upset about. Does anybody here have a favorite weed? Oh, I get the chuckle. Okay. Does your neighbor have a weed that you really hate? That might be better than it doesn't make you commit to anything. Anybody? Buckwheat. Okay. Buckwheat is a lower plant life. Okay, in the early agronomy in the 1900s, early 1900s, they distinguished between upper level plant life and lower level plant life. Okay, weeds are a lower level plant life. They like soil that's unbalanced and out of whack, and they're out there trying to fix the problem for you. So quit killing the messenger. All right, that's one of the messages today. Buckwheat, for example, is a middle of the road weed. All right, soils that may be high in potassium, high in magnesium, low in calcium, low in phosphate, and they'll take off and grow very well when that environment's good for them. Things like kochia, dandelion, thistle, foxtail are weeds that like a higher salt content. Right? So you're going to see them growing around the edges of potholes where water has been sitting or there's higher conductivity in the soil. Weeds like wild oats, red root pigweed, lamb's quarters, usually grow in better balanced soil or soils that have more calcium and phosphorus and a better balance of potassium and magnesium. So if you start to understand what the weeds are telling you, you can make those adjustments in your soil fertility and those weed pressures will go away. We've been doing this quite successfully for the last 10 years. Insects. Insects go to plants that are dead or dying. Dr. Tom Dykstra has researched this for many years. He's an entomologist out of Gainesville, Florida. If you're getting insect problems in your crops, your crop is very weak. Okay, it's only going to go to crops that are dead and dying. They've tracked insects in as far as 8 miles to go into a crop that has a very low sugar content, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But if the plant is not doing well and the insects come up and chew it out, they're taking food out of the food supply that we shouldn't be eating. Okay, they're poor quality plants. So again, don't shoot the messenger. Disease, the same thing. The microorganisms, the molds, algae, and funguses that attack your plant are simply decomposers. They're just doing their job. So if it turns out that you don't have enough energy for your plant to build mass, it's going to start decomposing. And I know it's a bit different than most people talk about diseases, but if you start to understand why they're there and what's happening, you can develop a plan on how to fix them. Okay? So the first thing we need to do is develop a point of reference. This is a refractometer. Has anybody ever seen one before? Okay, you're familiar with it? What it is simply a prism. All right, this is a prism of glass. What we do is put the sap, either from the stems, the leaves, or the grain, produce, whatever the plant is growing, close it and hold it up to the light. It's high-tech gadgetry. Be very careful how you do this. Okay, in here is a scale from 0 to 32. And what we're measuring is the photosynthesis, or how well the plant is gathering energy from the sun and collecting and holding it. Okay, it's going to vary. Some days it might be a little bit higher when it's really hot and sunny because the plant is photosynthesizing. On days that are cloudy, or if you have low pressure systems, you find that Brix is going to actually lower in the plant. And as the plant matures, it will naturally come up and then kind of level off before the plant is finished producing. When the Brix, and that's what this you're measuring here is the degree of Brix, is under 7, your plant has no immunity, okay? All molds, algae, and funguses can attack it. You're going to have insect pressure, and your weed pressure is going to be crazy too because there's nothing, it's not competitive. When you get it up to 10, you're going to find more drought resistance, frost resistance, and you're going to find the plant starts to metabolize its own nutrients out of the environment. You can start backing off on your fertility. And when you get to 12, the insects will stop going after your plants. They can't digest sugar, they're not going to attack the plant. And in reality, if you can get your Brix 1 or 2 points higher than your neighbors, you're going to beat the insects. They're going to go to your neighbors first. You're not going to make friends, mind you, but you're not going to have to deal with insects. So it's a really neat tool to have, okay? When I go grocery shopping, I take it with me to the grocery store. Tell the manager what's going on and say, hey, I'm checking the Brix. They'll laugh and say, we already did. Because they'll reject shipments if the Brix isn't high enough, okay? Sugar is a natural preservative. And if you have a good quality sugar in your plant, your fruits and vegetables are going to store better, okay? But we've gone in, I've taken my daughter in. She doesn't do it anymore because she's a teenager now. But we go in and check plants and we won't, or fruits and vegetables, we won't take anything home that has a Brix less than 10. And sometimes we have oranges and pineapple and grapes. Everything else is under that, and that's not a good sign. But it's a great tool to have when you're out in the field assessing. Now the second tool I'm going to introduce is called the Conductivity Meter. Okay? And what it's measuring is how well the soil is conducting energy. Okay? If you go back to Einstein, and I know we all studied the theory of relativity, okay, and you all understand it to the point that we can have a real good discussion on it. You can teach me what it's about. But energy is needed to produce mass, okay? If you don't have energy, you can't grow mass, and that's the way the plants work. They have to have an adequate amount of energy in its environment so that it can continue to grow. So we go around and we pop this in the soil, okay? In the root of the plant, in between the rows, and sometimes we'll push it down as far as we can. We'll get out of the aerobic zone and into the anaerobic zone. And it'll tell us a lot about how the soil is functioning. When we initially started, we checked the conductivity in the soil, and it might be 200 ergs, okay? If it rained, the conductivity was diluted and it would drop down to 150 ergs. And if it got hot and dry, thank you, conductivity would go up really high and the plant might start to burn or drought. We get some damage on it. As we get the microbes in the soil working properly and we get that consistency through the soil, the conductivity might start at 600. If it rains, the conductivity will go down because the microbes are going dormant. And if it gets hot and dry, the conductivity will actually sit stable or sometimes drop as well. So there's lots of different things that change when the energy source changes, and that might be more than you want to hear, but we could talk about another time. Anytime the conductivity drops below 200 to 150 ergs, that's the energy release per gram per second, we see disease start to form on the plants. Okay, so if you can keep the energy in your soil above that 200 point, you're going to have less disease pressures. We also find that when the energy drops in the soil, the weeds take off. All right, there's a lot of weed pressure that becomes developed. So if you're fertilizing your plant, the higher frequency plants or the higher life form, it needs calcium and phosphate. Those are 2 minerals of nutrition. They're the biggest minerals in your body, your cows, your chickens, your pigs, your kids. If you're fertilizing for food, you're going to use calcium and phosphorus. If you're fertilizing for weeds, you're going to use electrolytes like potassium, magnesium, that type of stuff. That's the environments that they like. If you watch the energy and the conductivity, you can watch and see how well your soil is repairing and how quickly it's coming around. If it's too low, we need to increase it. If it's too high, we need to lower some of the salts and create that really good growing environment. Okay? So, I guess when it comes to additives, crop inputs, that type of stuff, what we try to tell people, make sure you're only putting out what you need. All right, if you're putting out extra heavy metals, if you're putting out products that you don't need the minerals, you can cause more complications and tie-ups in your soil. Make sure what you're putting out there is microbial friendly. If you're putting out things with high pHs or acidic things that are going to cause damage to your microbes, high salt products, you're going to cause detriment to your microbes, and it's not going to do you any favors in the long run. Yeah, make sure you do regular assessments. It'll help you gauge how your soil is repairing and things that you can do. And once you figure out what the problem is, Only use, like I said, the minerals that you need to actually fix the problem. And from there, your soil will take off and you can use less inputs and still get a good quality crop. Remember, we're building food. And if your priority isn't food, I've gone as far as telling people not to bother growing food, because if it's poor quality, you're not doing anybody any favors. We need good quality food that has good energy in it so we can repair and stay healthy. So that's it in a nutshell. If you have any questions, come down to the booth. We've got lots of information, and we can do what we can to help you develop a good long-term goal of how you're going to keep your soil healthy and produce good quality food. Thank you.